All right, welcome back. Hope you had a great week. Today we're continuing our BCBA exam practice question series where we go through 10 BCBA exam questions and we break them down how we should think about them on our actual exam. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. We're happy to have you. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you're looking for our proven study materials, please check out bcbastudy.com. We offer a full 5th edition task list study guide, a full practice exam, and our combo pack, which includes both. If you purchase the practice exam or the combo pack, you get all future practice exams for free. You can take them as many times as you want. They are yours to keep. We had some great feedback recently. Christina passed her exam and she used our thought process we use as we describe our questions. So congratulations to her. Very excited for that. It's a huge accomplishment. Everybody else, let's keep working hard. Let's keep studying hard and let's get into our questions. Question 1. Slash plays guitar in a band with his friends. They perform every Friday and Saturday at local clubs. Last night, Slash played the wrong chord on one of his solos. The next day of practice, Slash intentionally played the wrong chord during that solo 15 times in a row. What was Slash engaging in? All right, so this is some sort of punishment procedure. And if we look at our answer choices, we've got our 3 big overcorrection procedures, right? Positive practice, negative practice, and restitutional overcorrection. We know for sure it's not negative reinforcement. He's not trying to increase playing the wrong chord, obviously. So reinforcement increases behavior. We can eliminate D. It leaves us with overcorrection. What is Slash doing? Is Slash playing or is Slash engaging in the wrong behavior repeatedly? Is he engaging in the correct behavior repeatedly? Or is he repairing an environment to a better state? Well, he's engaging in the wrong behavior repeatedly. So if we look at A, positive practice overcorrection, positive practice is when you engage in the correct behavior repeatedly. Okay, so we can eliminate A. Negative practice overcorrection is when you engage in the wrong behavior repeatedly. And that's what Slash is doing. He is negatively practicing, if you will, the wrong chord over and over again to attempt to try and reduce that behavior. So B looks like our answer. And then of course, restitutional overcorrection is when you repair the environment to a state better than what it was before. So what is Slash engaging in after he played the wrong chord? He is engaging in negative practice overcorrection. Alexis loves to call all of her family members every day of the week, but it has gotten to the point of excessiveness. Alexis's mom tells her she will earn ice cream if she only calls family 3 times or less during the week. What type of procedure is this? All right, differential reinforcement questions. Start by asking yourself the question, are we teaching a replacement behavior? If you can answer that, you can quickly either eliminate certain DRs or identify certain DRs, okay? Are we teaching a replacement behavior in this scenario, or are we just trying to reduce something? Well, we're just trying to reduce something, right? It's okay that Alexis calls her family members. She's just doing it too much. So if we're not teaching a replacement behavior, what of our answer choices can we eliminate? Well, we can eliminate A, DRA, because DRA teaches a replacement behavior. And we can eliminate C, DRI, because DRI also teaches a replacement behavior. So that leaves us with DRL and DRO. So ask yourself, are we reinforcing in the absence of a behavior, or are we reinforcing for a behavior, right? With DRO, okay, we reinforce when a behavior doesn't occur at all. DRO, we're trying to eliminate a behavior completely. With DRL, we're just trying to reduce that behavior. So it's okay that the behavior is happening, it's just happening too frequently. So in this case, are we trying to eliminate that behavior altogether? Are we reinforcing if that behavior doesn't happen at all? Or are we just reinforcing if that behavior happens less than it is currently? Well, of course, we're reinforcing for it happening less than it is currently. If she calls every day of the week, we can say she calls 7 times per week. We now want her to call 3 times or less during the week. So if she calls 3 times or less, she will receive reinforcement. If she calls more than that, she will not. So that being said, what type of procedure are we using? Well, we're using a DRL, Okay, we're trying to reduce the times the behavior happens, but not eliminate it entirely. With DRO, we're trying to eliminate the behavior entirely. So our answer here is B, DRL. You want to conduct a non-contingent reinforcement intervention targeting your client's attention-seeking behavior. Your RBT takes baseline data, which results in determining your client engaging in attention-seeking behavior 10 times per hour. What would be an appropriate schedule to deliver non-contingent reinforcement? Kind of a wordy question. When you take your BCBA exam and you get long or wordy or convoluted questions, just slow down, determine first what is your question asking. A lot of people get caught up in the question and all the information they're giving you and forget to just start by the easiest thing, which is what do I need to find out? Okay, because a lot of the questions on the exam give you too much information that you don't need, right? What is this question asking? This question is asking, what is an appropriate schedule to deliver non-contingent reinforcement? So we know we're picking some sort of schedule, okay, and we're delivering non-contingent reinforcement. What data is going to help us to figure that out? Well, in the question, we know the client engages in attention-seeking behavior 10 times per hour. What is the rule for non-contingent reinforcement? You want to deliver your non-contingent reinforcement right before when that behavior typically happens. Okay, the whole point of non-contingent reinforcement is to act as an abolishing operation for this behavior. So if our behavior happens 10 times per hour, okay, then we can safely assume it's happening about 6 times per minute. Or I'm sorry, once every 6 minutes, I should say. Okay. So that being said, if our behavior is happening about once every 6 minutes, when is an appropriate time to deliver non-contingent reinforcement? Remember, we want to try to prevent that behavior from happening and abolish the need for that behavior to happen. So A, every 7 minutes. Would it be a good idea to deliver non-contingent reinforcement after the behavior typically occurs? Well, no, because if you do that, you definitely run the risk of accidentally reinforcing that behavior. If the attention-seeking behavior happens once every 6 minutes and you're delivering non-contingent reinforcement every 7 minutes, okay, you're delivering the reinforcement after that behavior happens. B, every 6 minutes. Well, we run into the same issue, right? Now you're delivering non-contingent reinforcement about the time this attention-seeking behavior happens anyways. You severely run the risk, right, of reinforcing that behavior. Remember, we want to go right below when that behavior typically happens. So C, every 5 minutes, would be ideal. We know it happens, the behavior happens about every 6 minutes. If we can start delivering non-contingent reinforcement about every 5 minutes, the hope is we can abolish the want to engage in attention-seeking behavior so it doesn't happen. And then D, once per hour. Well, that's not going to be nearly enough, right? It happens 10 times per hour. Only delivering non-contingent reinforcement once per hour is not going to be enough to offset 10 times per hour. So our answer here is C, every 5 minutes. Anna is working with a client who engages in aggression throughout the day. Her BCBA asks her to take data on the aggression. On Monday, Anna records 10 instances of aggression. On Tuesday, Anna records 6 instances of crying. And on Wednesday, Anna records 8 instances of crying. Anna's data lacks what? So what has Anna done wrong here? Okay. Well, her BCBA wanted her to take data on aggression, which Monday she did, but then on Tuesday and Wednesday, she kind of drifted and started taking data on crying. That data lacks what? Does that data lack accuracy? Well, we're not sure, right? For all we know, this data is extremely accurate, right? Aggression happened 10 times, crying happened 6 times, crying happened 8 times. For all we know, this is perfect data. Okay, so we can't say Anna's data lacks accuracy just because she recorded the wrong behavior. What about validity? Yes, what does validity say? Validity says we are actually measuring the behavior of interest. Anna's first data collection on Monday is valid, but on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's invalid because she measured the wrong thing. So Anna's data lacks validity. B looks like our answer. Always read all of your answer choices. 1, to make sure you found the best answer. And 2, when you're studying, you want to be able to determine, okay, why something is and isn't correct. If you can figure out why the wrong answers are wrong, you are going to become much better at the test. Okay, you'll become quicker at the test, right? And the questions will become easier. So C, reliability. Why is our answer not reliability? Well, Anna's data might be reliable. If she measured aggression, she's going to get the same data. If she measures crying, she's going to get the same data. Okay, it's just not valid when she measures crying. So data can be accurate, it can be reliable, but it's just not valid in the sense, right? Same thing with validity and reliability, right? You can have data that's valid, you can have data that's reliable, it just might not be accurate. All right. So C is not our answer. And then D, consistency. Well, when we talk about data, we talk about accuracy, validity, and reliability. Consistency is not one of those terms we use, right? So that's not going to be our answer. Anna's data ultimately lacks validity because she started recording the wrong thing. Susie needs help moving this weekend. Tonight, she is going to buy her friends dinner and then ask them to help her move. Susie is engaging in a what? All right, so what is a contingency? A contingency is an if-then statement. If you do this for me, then I do this for you. Susie is doing what? She's reversing that, right? She's doing a then if. Realistically, Susie wants a if you help me move, then I buy you dinner. Susie says, I'm going to buy you dinner. Now you must help me move. This is considered a what? Is this a bribe? Yes. The reverse of a contingency is a bribe. A contingency is what we want to use. We want if-then statements. If you do homework, then you get a break. If you clean your room, then you get $5. If you behave in school, then you can have fun this weekend. Those are our contingencies, okay? It's an exchange, right? A bribe is you get the reinforcement first. Here's $5. Now you have to do your math homework, right? You get to go out this weekend, but next week you need to behave. That is a bribe, okay? Susie is engaging in a bribe. Susie, well, she might have good friends, but assume she doesn't have good friends. Susie buys them dinner. Now there's really no incentive to help her move, right? They already got the reinforcement. Susie should have them move, help her move first, then she can buy them dinner afterwards. That's a proper contingency. What about C, prompt? Is this a prompt? No, Susie's trying to establish a contingency. She's just doing it in reverse and establishing a bribe instead. And then a behavior contract. Well, a behavior contract has a signature, it has a goal, it has a reinforcement, it has a punisher. It has several items that aren't included in our question here. So this is not a contract. It is simply a bribe to try to get her friends to help her move. You're helping your little brother pick out a Halloween costume. There are 3 costumes that you like, so you want to see which one is your brother's favorite. You first present the Batman and Spider-Man costume. They choose Batman. You then present Batman and Superman. They choose Superman. You then present Superman and Spider-Man, and they choose Superman. You have conducted a what? Obviously, some sort of preference assessment question. What is our trick for preference assessments? Okay, we want to ask ourselves, how many stimuli are we assessing at once? If we're assessing only one stimulus, that's of course going to be a single choice or single stimulus. If we're assessing 2 stimuli at a time, that's going to be a paired choice or a forced choice. If we're assessing 3 or more, then we're looking at a multiple stimulus assessment. How many stimuli are we assessing at once? Well, you present a Batman and Spider-Man costume, so 2. Batman and Superman costume, 2. Superman, Spider-Man, 2. We are conducting a what? We are conducting a forced choice preference assessment. Preference assessment questions, super simple. It really just comes down to how many items are you assessing at once, right? Now, multiple stimulus, we have with and without replacement, which is the only maybe wrinkle, okay, that you have to worry about. And then a free operant preference assessment is obviously just letting the client or the learner engage with their environment as you sit back and observe and collect data, right? You're not actually intervening during a free operant assessment. You are just watching. But if you're presenting 2 choices at a time and having them pick one and establishing a hierarchy, you are conducting a forced choice preference assessment. A team of researchers at UNLV recently discovered a method of teaching a foreign language rapidly to elementary school students who participated in the study. However, they have not been able to implement it effectively anywhere else. Their study currently lacks what? What has this team failed to do? They failed to implement their intervention outside of the initial environment. Okay, what does that sound like? To me, it sounds like a failure to generalize. Okay, so if your research, if your intervention, or if your study doesn't work outside of the contrived experimental environment, what do you lack? A, internal validity. What does internal validity says? Internal validity looks at functional relations, right? Are we controlling the behavior? Well, there's no indication that their initial experiment, they didn't have internal validity. Okay. Their problem is they can't now replicate this outside of their experimental environment. Does the study lack measurability? Well, again, no, it seems like the first initial experiment was fine. They measured it okay. And now they're obviously measuring things because they know it's lacking something. Credibility. Do they lack credibility? Not necessarily. Again, it might be a fine study. They're just struggling to what? Struggling to generalize, and therefore their study lacks external validity. Okay. If your experiment, if your research, if your study cannot work outside of the laboratory, quote unquote, experimental environment, you lack external validity. Which of the following is not a type of mentalism in ABA? So simply a knowledge question, no trick here. Is a hypothetical construct a mentalism in ABA? Yes, it is something we refer to. What about an explanatory fiction? Yes, as well. What about circular reasoning? Yes, it's faulty logic that falls under the umbrella of mentalisms in ABA. So of course, that leaves us with D, control. Control is sometimes considered the quote unquote fifth function, right, by some people. You will constantly hear ABA professionals refer to control, control, control. However, in the literature, in our task list, in our study guides, in our books, control is not a mentalism we refer to in ABA. The mentalisms are hypothetical constructs, explanatory fictions, and circular reasoning. You and your little sister at the bakery looking at all the baked goods. Tell the cashier that you would like 2 strawberry cupcakes. Your little sister sees the chocolate cupcake and says, chocolate cupcake. Your little sister emitted what verbal operant? All right, be careful here. Okay, we have 2 potential learners in the scenario. We have yourself doing something and the little sister doing something. On the behavior questions, make sure you know who they're talking about. The question is asking about the little sister. Okay, what does the little sister do? She sees a chocolate cupcake, and she says, chocolate cupcake. What type of operant is this? Is this an echoic? What are some characteristics of an echoic? An echoic is evoked by a verbal SD. It has point-to-point correspondence and formal similarity. Was your sister's verbal operant evoked by a verbal SD? No, it was a nonverbal SD. She saw the chocolate cupcake and she said, chocolate cupcake. Is it a command? Is this evoked by a motivating operation? There's no indication that it's evoked by a motivating operation, right? You just ordered 2 strawberry cupcakes, okay? The only thing that happened was little sister saw chocolate cupcake and she said, chocolate cupcake. So this was evoked by a nonverbal SD, which means this is most likely a tact. She just labeled the chocolate cupcake, okay? That's the information we're given. That has to be our best choice. That's why it's important that you know on the exam what evokes your verbal operants. Do they have formal similarity? Do they have point-to-point correspondence? And what reinforces those verbal operants? Because they're going to ask you questions like this, testing your knowledge on all those things. So your sister sees the chocolate cupcake, nonverbal SD. When you see a nonverbal SD and you label it, what is that considered? That, of course, is considered a tact. An interverbal is evoked by a verbal SD and a social. Not what happened here. Your sister simply tacted the chocolate cupcake. It is essential when you are explaining behavior concepts to parents and other stakeholders that you what? All right, so part of our job as analysts is to train parents, to train stakeholders on what we know. And as a BCBA, you will be a very knowledgeable person You will know everything there is to know about ABA, okay? And you will want to share this knowledge. However, when you're sharing knowledge with non-ABA professionals, what do we need to remember? A, use technical language and jargon. Should you try to use a lot of fancy words, fancy terms, fancy buzzwords, and show off everything you know? No, okay? You're going to lose the interest of your client, of the parent, of the stakeholder, right? They don't know our technical language. They don't know our jargon. It's our job to teach them, okay? Not to show off how much language we know. So we want to avoid technical language and jargon. B, avoid mentioning any negative things about the client. Well, it's just not possible. Part of our job as analysts is confronting these sometimes difficult situations, okay? We have to be sometimes the bearer of bad news. We have to be honest and look out for the best interest of our clients. So B is not going to be our answer. C, explain concepts using non-technical language. Yes, right? If you want to describe reinforcement, you can say it's going to increase the behavior. If you want to describe punishment, you can say it's going to decrease the behavior. You want to be able to explain things simply using non-technical language. And then D, provide weekly quizzes and put parents on probation who don't pass. Now, that's not necessarily something you need to be doing. Obviously, each company has their own policies. Parent training is part of our job, but D is pretty extreme. What it comes down to is when you are explaining behavior concepts, you want to use non-technical language that anybody, even who has no knowledge of behavior, would understand. All right, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Please check out bcbastudy.com for more. If you have any questions, let me know. Email me, leave a comment. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep working hard, study hard. See you soon.